Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Special Education Legal Fund's first webinar of the year. This is a webinar focusing on our attorney and advocates grants programs, your questions answered. My name is Christine Lai, and I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of Special Education Legal Fund. So let's begin. Before we get started, I just want to lend a hearty thank you to our corporate sponsors and partners, without whom so much of what we do is not possible. At the platinum level, I'd like to acknowledge Eagle Hill School and WealthSpire Advisors. At the gold level, I'd like to acknowledge our friends at Winston Preparatory School. At the silver level, our friends at Villa Maria School, Chapel Haven Schleifer Center, Fusion Academy, and American School for the Deaf. And at the bronze level, rounding out our list of sponsors, I'd like to thank the Spire School and the Pinnacle School. We are deeply grateful for the support and friendship of all of our corporate sponsors and partners. For those of us who aren't familiar with us, Special Education Legal Fund is a nonprofit organization founded in 2018 to provide knowledge, resources, and support to families in need with children in the special education system. We do this primarily through this webinar program and our grants programs, the Advocate Grant Program and the Attorney Grant Program, which we will be discussing this evening. Because this wouldn't be a webinar without a disclaimer, I'm just going to share this disclaimer for you before we begin. This webinar panel is presented for informational purposes only. The webinar is presented as a resource for families who are navigating the special education system in Connecticut or New York, and is not intended to provide legal support, advice, or assistance to any particular individual, nor is it intended to replace the advice and counsel of a qualified special education attorney. Families in need of legal advice, support, and assistance should contact a special education attorney licensed to practice in Connecticut or New York to discuss the specific needs of their individual student. This webinar should not be construed as an endorsement by Special Education Legal Fund or any of its representatives of any of the participating attorneys, advocates, or professionals in the panel, nor should it be construed as an endorsement of any school or school representative invited to appear. So, as we start the grant cycle, the 2024-2025 grant cycle, I thought it would be helpful to review both of these programs, which have undergone a few changes over the course of the past few years. We just opened the portal for pre-screens yesterday, actually, and we're already fielding both pre-screen requests as well as applications. But I'm going to go through both of these programs and how we apply and qualifications for both the attorney program and the advocate program here. So the attorney grant program, which was formerly known as the legal assistance program, is a program that provides up to $6,000 in legal support from a qualified special education attorney to a family that applies through our grant process. The Advocate Grant Program, formerly the Advocacy Support Program, is a similar program that provides up to $1,000 in advocacy support from a qualified non-attorney special education advocate from our list. Both of these programs share the same deadlines. Applications to the programs are due on the 15th of each month, and interviews, which are mandatory, must be completed by the 22nd. We undergo a monthly review for both of these programs, which means that we take in and process applications on a monthly basis and inform families as to their status in the program at the end of the month in which they apply. This program, both of these programs will run for the academic year, which is September of 2024 through May of 2025. First question that I get on these programs is, am I eligible to apply? Excuse me. You are eligible as a family to apply to the programs if you meet the following criteria. And all of this is detailed on our website on the page apply for grant. First of all, your income must be below 300% of the federal minimum poverty level, which is $93,600 for a family of four. We measure this by adjusted gross income. If you have any additional questions, you can add them in the chat, or we can expand on these after the presentation is over. But generally speaking, that is how we measure adjusted gross income. You must live in Connecticut or Westchester County, New York, in order to apply to both the advocacy program and the attorney program. And your child must have an IEP for the attorney or advocate grant, or a 504 plan for the advocate grant only to apply. So just to be clear, the attorney grant program requires an IEP. The advocate grant program, you can have an IEP or 504 plan. Second most asked question that we receive is, what happens if I received a SPELF grant previously? Both of these programs, the attorney and advocate grant programs, are offered on a one-time per child per family basis. That means that if you have received an attorney grant in the past, a legal assistance program grant, whatever, you're not eligible to apply to either program. If you've received an advocate grant in the past, you may apply for an attorney grant, but you are no longer able to apply for another advocate grant. And if you've received either of these grants for one of your children, but you need to apply for another one of your another child in your family, you may apply to either program, the advocate grant program or the attorney grant program. Next most asked question that we get is, how do I request funding? This process is, I'm going to walk through this process here so that, to hopefully to make it as clear as possible for, any families that are on the line or professionals that may have questions about this. But the first step, it's a 3-step process. And the first step is the pre-screen. To complete the pre-screen, you have to visit our website, which is www.spedlegalfund.org, and click on the button that says Apply for Grant. This will bring you, once you find the button on the page for the program that you want, either the advocate program or the attorney program, and you click on that button, that will bring you to an application screen, which will ask the following questions. It's going to ask you your name, your email address, whether you've ever received a grant for the student, and whether your student has an IEP or an IEP 504 plan, where you live, what's your last reported adjusted gross income, how many people live in your household, and what are you trying to achieve with this action? Seems like a lot of questions, but these are very important for us in the process. And the pre-screen, as I mentioned, is the first step in the process. The most important thing that I want to stress as we go through this page is that the pre-screen, what you do on the website, the questions that you answer when visiting our website for the first time, is not the application itself. If you complete this part of the process, you are not done. You still have 2 more steps to go, and you are not completed with the process. That's the most important thing that I'd like everyone to understand, because very, very often we get calls from families that, are like, what's going on with my grant? If you've only done this part of it, you haven't completed the process, and there's no there's no way for us to review your request for funding. So pre-screen, step 1. Step 2, after you complete the pre-screen, you're going to receive a response from us within 48 to 72 hours. If you meet the eligibility requirements for both the programs, you're going to receive the application automatically through email. The email is going to come from our platform, which is called JotForm, and it will come directly to the email that you used in the pre-screening process. I would urge you to check both your spam and junk folders to make sure that nothing got lost in there, but the link to the application will be in that return email. Once you've received the email sharing that you are eligible to apply, you're going to complete the application through the link in the email. You should take some time to do this. This is a 7-page application. It's going to ask you questions about, obviously your name and address and, and all that kind of thing. But it's also going to ask you about, your student situation, what you hope to gain if you're approved for the grant. And you're going to have to attach, most importantly, 3 items. The first is a proof of income. That is essentially just so we can verify that your income falls within the guidelines for both of these programs, which are on the website, and as I said, are 300% of the federal minimum poverty level. The second thing that you're going to need to attach to the to this application is your individualized education plan, your IEP, or your 504 plan if you're applying for the advocacy program, the advocate program. That is a requirement for these. We cannot process any grants without those documents. And the last thing, which was new this year, and which we've added to the application process, is your most recent evaluation. For those of you that live in Connecticut, this might have become a little bit easier, I hope, in over the course of the past year with the implementation of the CT SED system, in which you should have access to your most recent triennial evaluation. That's fine. If you have a more recent neuropsych private evaluation, those are welcome as well. What you should attach here is the most recent evaluation that gives the best picture of your child. That's really what we're looking for here, is an evaluation that gives us a complete and thorough understanding of your child. Then after you've done all that and done this application, completed all the questions and attached your 3 documents, you're going to want to submit your application. I realize that a lot of times the IEP or the evaluations might be large. If they are, and you can't attach them to the to the application, you can email us in advance of your submission and let us know, and we will let you know what steps to take if that is indeed the case. The last point is important. This application completed and these 3 documents attached are due on the 15th of each month. If you send in your application and the documents by the 15th, that means that we can consider you in the request for funding for that month. After that, you're going to go into the next month, and so on and so forth. Um, Importantly, just like I said at the end of the last slide, submitting the application completed and the documents does not mean that you're finished. You are not completed with the process. You still have one more step to go. Next step is the interview. As I mentioned, I think a little bit earlier, the interview is a mandatory part of the process for requesting a grant from SELF. And after we've received your completed application through the portal and documents, and we've reviewed them, we will contact you to schedule an interview. We will confirm with you a mutually agreeable time. Generally speaking, these times happen within business hours, Monday through Friday. We will be as flexible as possible, but within those constraints and the constraints of our staff, this is when the interviews have to take place. One thing that I want to point out is that once we confirm a time and we're going through this scheduling process, we will provide you with a dial-in number. We're never going to call your cell phone, and we're not going to send reminders to you of your interview time and at date and time. It's your responsibility. It's going to be your responsibility to call the dial-in number and make sure you're there on time and that you have all the information that's needed for the interview. As I said before, the interview is required. It lasts usually between 45 minutes and an hour. And while it's not required that you prepare per se for the interview, I mean, this isn't, a job interview or anything. What I think some families find helpful and is something that can help you in the process is if you are able to write a quick outline of your child's school experience and why you need a grant. That's the kind of thing that's really helpful to you in order to frame, what's happened and why you're looking for this. And it's also important because it helps you remember all of the salient points that that happened to your child or that you experienced in the advocacy process. Very often when we're talking about this, it's upsetting and it can be hard to remember all of the things that have happened. If you've written them down very, even if it's really casually on a piece of paper, on your phone in the notes app, it doesn't have to be real formal. Something like that is super, super helpful. And it's like, date, date and what occurred. Was it an IEP meeting? Was it an incident at school? Was it the evaluation? What are the things that happened in each school year and that have led you to the point that you are at now? The fifth point is try to arrange a quiet place for you to dial into the phone interview. We are obviously understanding that that you all have to work and that we have a lot of competing demands on our time with regard to our children and our families and and our work requirements. But it's in your benefit for you to be able to do this in a quiet place where you can think about what you're sharing with us. It's the interviews don't generally tend to go as well when you're in your car or you're driving or you're at the park or anything like that. In your house, I mean, in your house, in a quiet place, and someplace where you can, concentrate on what we're talking about is really, really helpful, not just for you, but also for us, so we can try to understand the challenges and what you're facing in your current advocacy struggles with your child. This interview is can be scheduled really as soon as we receive your application and review it, but has to be completed by the 22nd in order for your request for funding to be considered in that particular month. And once you've completed your interview, you have finished the process. You have completed the request, and we are able to then review your application documents and interview in your request for funding in that month. So this is great. You've completed all 3 steps. What happens then? What happens after that is we review all requests for funding that have completed the 3 required steps. And we will notify everyone who's completed all 3 of those steps by the end of the month in which you apply. So for September, which is the month that we have right now, we will be accepting applications until September 15th. Between September and 15th and the 22nd, we will be conducting the remainder of the interviews that we have to do with the applicants to the program, to the program for the month. And then we undergo a review process really, during the last week of the month. And our indications are made to you as to your status in the program, whether we're able to fund your request. We will be able to let you know that by the end of the month in which that you've applied. So for September, like I said, applications the 15th, interviews the 22nd. You will know, whether or not we can fund your request by September 30th. If you've been approved, you will receive an email on the 30th or 31st of the month that you've applied. And the first thing that you should do so obviously you should keep an eye on your email at the end of the month to see whether or not you've been approved for the grant. First thing you should do is reply to the email, a very simple reply. You've received the email and you're interested in this opportunity. The second thing you need to do for the attorney grant only is to schedule an onboarding call with us. This is a 20-minute phone call with a member of our staff in which we answer questions about the process from here. We can answer some questions about how you hire an attorney and anything else you might want to know. This is required, but it's also, it's required, but I would like you to look at it as an opportunity to answer questions and learn a little bit more about the process. And then the third step, if you don't already have an attorney, is to begin scheduling some initial consultations with special education attorneys that you might be interested in. We have some resources on our website about, about trying to hire or, the process of hiring an attorney. So I encourage you to maybe look at those videos if you haven't already. And to try to winnow down a list of attorneys that you might want to speak with about your case. The onboarding call goes into this at much greater depth. The other thing I want to mention here is that there are many attorneys and advocates who do not charge an initial consultation fee to grant recipients of these programs. So I would encourage you, if you have been approved for an advocate grant or an attorney grant, and you are making these initial consultation appointments with attorneys, please let them know that you are a self grant recipient, and the attorneys that we've worked with in the past and the advocates on our list will know what to do. Important things I want you to remember from this slide: if you do not respond to the approval email, your grant approval will be revoked. This sounds harsh, but we have a lot of applicants to these programs. We have limited funding. We just have to know if we can move forward with a particular applicant or not. Second thing I want you to know, which from this page, which is the first time I'm mentioning it, is that you have 30 days from your conditional approval, from when you get that email from us telling you that you're approved. You have 30 days to retain an attorney or advocate. Now, what that means to me, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have signed on the dotted line with an attorney or an advocate. However, I want to know that you've made some progress to hiring an attorney by a month after you've gotten the approval from us. So, if you've made 2 appointments to speak with attorneys and you've been waiting to speak to a third because, scheduling wise, it hasn't worked for you, that's completely fine. Just let us know. But we just want to hear that you've made progress and that you're continuing to research the attorneys or advocates that you might want to use. But 30 by, in the middle of the month, we might check in with you if we haven't heard. And certainly by a week to, a few days before that 30-day deadline, we will likely reach out to you again and let you know that you're bumping up on that deadline. Um, Next question, who can I hire? On the attorney front, you can hire anyone you want as long as they meet the following requirements. This is on our website as well, but I'm going to go through them quickly. They must practice special education or disability rights law for 7 years or more, and special education or disability rights law must represent a majority of their practice. They should be affiliated with the American Bar Association, Connecticut Bar Association, or New York Bar Association, and they have to be licensed to practice in Connecticut or New York. These requirements are important, especially the first two, because special education is a very, very specific type of law. It has, and I'm not a lawyer, so I, am fully, free to sort of opine on this, I guess. But it is a very specific field of law. It is not one that you can practice part-time. It is a field of law where it's constantly changing. There's many, many, many procedures and guidelines and timelines, and 10 days for this and 15 days for that, and 10 days and then another 5 days. And only someone that's really in the mix of it is going to know and be current on everything. In addition to the fact that you want a special education attorney who knows all the players in the market, who knows the special education attorneys on the other side of the table that work for the board of eds and the school districts, and and who knows the school and the schools and the professionals, and and the advocates, and really that's not possible unless that person, specializes in this type of law. You would not hire an attorney that specializes in patent law to do your, will and estate or whatever. Similarly, you wouldn't hire a corporate lawyer to, to practice, to opine on your special ed case. So really this is a protection for you and for all of us. And it's really, really important that, that we follow these guidelines. On the advocates, it's easy, or easier. We have a list. We will provide it to you when you're approved, and you must hire your special education advocate from the list that we provide. You've hired your attorney, you've selected your attorney. Now what? Your email that you receive from your, from when you've been notified, your congratulations email will contain links to documents for both you and your attorney to sign. For the attorney grant, the grantee, that's you, must complete and sign 2 documents. There's going to be a grant acceptance letter and a memo of understanding. And the attorney has to complete and sign another document, which is called the attorney grant acknowledgement. Once we've received all 3 of these documents, we will process that grant directly through the attorney. We do not pay any grants directly to families. All of these grants go directly to the attorneys once you've selected them and completed these 3 documents. One thing that I will note from this, is that if you've hired an attorney prior, to applying for a grant and you included their email in your application because you've already hired them, they're going to get all this information. They're going to get the email. They're going to know where you are in the process. So they'll automatically receive this email and they'll have access to the document. If you selected the advocate, same exact thing, except that there's only 2 documents to talk about. The email will again contain links to documents for both you and your advocate. You have to sign the grant letter. The advocate has to sign the grant acknowledgement. And once we've received both of those from you, we will process the grant directly with your advocate and arrange payment directly with them. Same thing is true if you hired them before, if you knew our list before and you hired an advocate on the list, included their email on your application, they're going to get this email as well, and they'll have access to everything. You don't have to forward it to them. Finally, well, not finally, I guess after you've received the grant, all of our grant recipients agree to provide periodic updates to us about their student for 3 years following the receipt of the grant. I apologize in advance. I know this is tedious for you to follow up and respond to our, requests for surveys or interviews or whatever. Usually we'll do this through an email, or you can, make an appointment to talk to staff about your experience. This usually happens during the summer. This is really, really important for us. It's actually one of the most important things that happen. And it's one of the most important things that you guys can do to support our programs going forward after you've received a grant. Um, you know, it's very, very crucial to our continued ability to raise funds that we know what happens to the students that we support in these programs. So please, 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 if you receive a grant from us and you get a link for feedback, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, please respond and fill out the emailed survey or make an appointment to speak to us about your experience. This is super helpful for us. Um, just to summarize our changes to the program that we've made for this year is obviously we've made a change to the programs, the names of the programs. The attorney grant was formerly the legal assistance program. The advocate grant was formerly the advocacy support program, although you're going to hear me confuse them at times because I'm not quite used to it yet. We are requiring an evaluation as part of the document submission process for the attorney grant only. That again is a triennial, an IEE, a private neuropsych, a document that you feel gives the best overview of your child. Generally speaking, we would prefer to see an educational evaluation or a neuropsychological evaluation over a speech and OT evaluation, unless, that's the primary concern that you have for your child. And only one evaluation is necessary. I don't want to see 5. If we need an additional evaluation, we will reach out to you to request it. And finally, this year's grant cycle will run from September 2024 to May 2025. As I said earlier, requests for funding will be reviewed on a monthly basis, so long as the application or documents are received by the 15th and the interview is done by the 22nd. So frequently asked questions. Hopefully, we will be able to hit all of your questions here in the presentation that I've done. First, most frequently asked question is that my request for funding was declined. Can I apply again? Yes, in most cases, you can roll over your application once into the following month. So say you applied in September and we weren't able to, and we got 15 applications and we only funded a few of them and you just missed the mark or you weren't funded, you can roll over into the October grant cycle. You would not, in this case, have to resubmit paperwork or update your interview. But if there are any changes in your case, you should let us know. Next question, I was approved for an advocate grant, but I need an attorney grant. Can I flip my advocate grant, which has been approved, into an attorney grant? The answer is no. The 2 programs are completely separate. They have different funding levels and different approval processes. If you're approved for an advocate grant and you decide you need an attorney grant, you have to start over and start with the attorney grant process. In many cases, if you've already gone through an interview and, whatever, there, you probably don't have to do that again, but they are not fungible into each other. The advocate grant is a $1,000 program. The attorney grant is a $6,000 program. They are not like, you cannot flip the one into the other. Next question, how do you decide which requests will be funded? So we review these cases for funding on a monthly basis by committee. It is a complicated process, as you can imagine. And and it's really complicated because of, the funding constraints that we have and the increase in applications that we've seen over the course of the last 6 years. Generally speaking, we place the most priority on supporting requests for funding where our dollars, our funds, can be most effectively utilized in support of a student's free and appropriate public education rights. So those are the cases that we are looking to fund in through these programs. How many grants per month do you fund? This is a number that can vary. But over the course of the last 6 years, we have generally funded between 3 and 5 grants per program per month. Next question, do you provide attorney recommendations? No, we do not. We do not recommend attorneys to clients who have been approved for the attorney grant program. We do have a list on our website of attorneys that we've worked with in the past. But as I said before, you are free to use any attorney as long as they meet the requirements the professional requirements that I spoke of before. The reason for this is, is that, we're not a legal services organization. We are a grants providing entity. And while, and the choice of an attorney, in this process is a difficult one. It's very personal. And while we may know a little bit about your student and the experience of your student, it's difficult for us to gauge, how the kind of person that you would work best with in at a difficult time. We provide the onboarding call as a way for approved candidates to ask questions about the process and to understand how to identify and hire an appropriate attorney, but we're not able to support to recommend attorneys to you. The person that I might choose to use is someone that might be totally different from you. You might want to use email, and the attorney likes to use the phone. I mean, these are all things that we go through in the onboarding call that are important to understand and very important in the process, but not things that we can help you determine for yourself. Next question, what attorneys have worked with self clients in the past? What advocates? Our website, as I said, has a list of attorneys that have worked with self clients under frequently asked questions on the website. Advocate grant clients receive a list of approved advocates. This is an important question, actually. I'm actually sorry that I put it at the end or close to the end. What happens if I run out of grant money before my student's case has been resolved? Our grants provide $6,000 through the attorney grant program and $1,000 through the advocate grant program. After the short answer to this question is that after the funding has been exhausted, you are responsible for any legal or advocacy fees that exceed the $6,000 or the $1,000. It is very important before you hire an attorney or an advocate that you understand the billing process, how much the attorney or advocate is going to be billing you, what they are going to be billing you for, and what is going to happen once the grant funding runs out. Because as I said earlier, this is a one-time per child, per family grant. So there's not an opportunity for you to come back to us for additional funding. The funding that we provide to you through this grant, the attorney grant and the advocacy grant, is the maximum extent of the funding that you'll receive from us. So it's really, really important that you understand what's going to happen after the funding runs out. Just from experience, I would say that some attorneys will continue to represent the client on a reduced fee basis. Some attorneys will continue to represent the client at their regular rate. And so it really, really depends. But that's a very important thing for you to understand before you sign any agreement with the attorney, with any attorney. As I said earlier, our grants programs are now open. You can scan this QR code. This will bring you to our website so you can start the process, or you can visit www.spedlegalfund.org and click on the apply for grant. But again, it's the pre-screen, the application, and the interview in order to complete a request for funding through our program. And that actually is the conclusion of the program. I have a question from one of the participants in the call, and it's a great question. How many applications do you typically receive each cycle? That number varies. We have received, I think the most applications we've received in any given month is, 16 or 17, maybe 18. I would generally say it's between 10 and 12. We have been capping that number at 12, in recent months, just because any more than that is beyond our staff's ability to process in a month. So that's another thing that I would mention, and thank you for asking this question, is that the application, the pre-screening portal is open until the 15th of the month. Actually, it's open all the time now that it's now that the year is open. The application portal that you receive through the link can close. If we received a lot of applications in the first week of the month, we received 12 right off the bat really quickly, we might make the decision to close the portal and not take any more applications that month. So if you're planning to apply, I think you should apply when you're ready, but I wouldn't necessarily wait until the 14th at 11 o'clock at night, or to the last minute in a particular monthly cycle, because there while it doesn't, you don't have a benefit from applying earlier in the month, it is, there's always a possibility that we might have seen a lot of activity and chosen to close early. So with that, that's all the questions that we have this evening. The presentation and the recording will be available and on our website and on Facebook, and emailed to anyone who registered for this program. So if there are no other questions, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. And hopefully we would, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at Christine@SPED Legal Fund, spedlegalfund.org, and I will attempt to answer your questions about applying to the program. Thanks so much and have a great evening.